That's Jody. So if you can kind of pass those forward, or I'm sure somebody can help collect them, then Jody will call folks in orderly fashion as we get to that part of the meeting. So we'll get started here in a minute or two, but just want to make sure if you were interested in doing that, you kind of understood that process. So thanks. All right, well, it is, Robin, happened again, exactly at 5:30. So. Well, while we're getting the technology rebooted, it is 5:30. We do have a quorum of the board, so I'll call the meeting to order. Thank you for enduring that 2 minutes of awkward silence between pre-announcement and meeting start. This meeting is conducted in accordance with the provisions of the Nebraska Open Meetings Act, which is posted in the back of the room. This evening we have again, a short but important agenda focused on the bond proposal that the board is considering. So we'll hear from the administration, some updates on that proposal, and then we'll move into our public comment period, and then to a couple of action items on the potential purchase and sale agreement for a property near 180th Ringwood Road, and then consider the resolution for the bond proposal. So that's the order of business this evening. Again, if you are interested in speaking in public comment, as I don't think Terry intends to go a long time this evening, you pass them forward so you get your opportunity to share. So Dr. Hawk, can you give us your update?
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody, for coming this evening. If you're at the last meeting or watched it through screening, you may see some of the same slides, but we want to make sure that the public is aware of what we're looking at this evening. So one of the things that we want to mention is the enrollment. This is in 3 different categories: elementary, middle school, and high school. And for this evening, we want to make sure that we're looking at the high school, although all of them are important. As we look at this, we see that the current numbers have us at about 1,025 students, 9 through 12. As we move forward, we see that there is some typical growth around 2 to 3%, plus the movement of those students. For example, 8th grade moves to 9th grade next year. As we look at that, we see that we're going to be in a category that is above our capacity. Capacity at a high school is 1,150 students. So in 2024-25, slightly above capacity. And as we continue to move forward, we really kind of focus on that 26-27, where we see that we're over 300 students in capacity at the high school. Again, there is some common growth and the fact that we move students down from grade to grade. I do want to point out that the 5th grade through 8th grade, which will be the high school students in 26-27, are currently with no growth at all at 1,280 estimated, 1,280. So with no growth at all, we have overcapacity in the system right now. If we move another 4 years back, we look at first grade through fourth grade as they matriculate and move forward. There are over 1,400 students in first through fourth grade. So we do have growth, but we already have a lot of those students in the system. We want to talk to you a little bit about the journey that we've taken. This has started with a presentation with the Board of Education that is November, and we typically have a November workshop for the Board of Education, and that is open to the public. A lot of times that is streamed the same as any other board meeting. We presented the information to the board that we are looking in 2026, that was 6 years, for a second high school. And we started to talk to the Board of Education about what it is to plan for a second high school. Use the architectural and engineering firms that we had at the time, the bonding that we currently have, looking forward to see what that looks like. Well, we were told at that time it takes about a year to go through planning stages of the city of Omaha as they get ready for this, and another 3 years roughly for construction of a high school. High school is bigger than an elementary, bigger than a middle school. So again, in November of 21, we started really more detail about what that is to look like, what we need to do. And we started a journey by going out with policy, what is necessary and needed for a new way that we have looked at it instead of a design, bid, and then build, looking at a construction management at risk. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But in February, looked at some more surveying, looked at some demographic information, more so than what we've done in the past, because we knew this was important and a big ask of the community. So we needed as much information as we could get. By June, we're looking at a Board of Education meeting to hire construction management at risk. We're asking the architects and engineers to move forward. We're looking at levy information and putting information out as a draft of what we think needs were at the time. July, we go out with community input, a little more with a public survey that was done, and we'll talk about those things a little bit. But the journey itself involves more than just board administration. It involves community members. And we went out and solicited, and a lot of volunteers came in to help us with that input gathering. And so as we looked at it, it was developed just a very simple theme. And so what we were looking at for that second high school. Forward thinking, celebrates the community, flexible, adaptable, collaborative, creative, and supports all learners. As we look at that, you can see just pictures of many different community members, staff members, board members, the architects, engineers, the experts in the field, all collaborating, all different designs as we move forward. Going back to the second high school, we did visits to South Dakota, to Kansas City, and to schools in the metro area. Did that in January and February. Again, we had lots of collaborative meetings in March, April, and May to come up with a design that would fit a site as we move forward. So going back to this, April, define the program review. June, do a lot of workshops, again, multiple people, community members, and the likes moving forward. This is the site that we're looking at this evening. This is the layout of that site. So as you look at it, the top of the page is the north. We look at what would be to the audience. It would be to their left, that is 180th Street. And if we look down at the bottom, I do want to clarify it. Military and Rainwood Road. To a certain extent, one and the same. If you go out to the highway on the 204th, it says on the sign, Rainwood. If you go a little closer, it says military. So 180th and military / Rainwood Road. And this would be the northeast corner of that piece of property. As you can see on this, we have a design with not only the scope that is looked at this evening, but future possibilities that go along with that. You can see interior and exterior roads that go along with that. And then you see up to the north, this land provides opportunity for a campus-like setting where it could be in the future a elementary setting along with a high school setting. And there are roads that divide that. One of the things that we look at with this site is that many know that the district picked a site and then rescinded that. This site that we're looking at tonight is more expensive. However, when you look at the land price versus the cost associated with site preparation, there is about $500,000 to $1 million difference. And so if you look at the price of the land is going to be much more than what the previous land was. But you have to look at the land and the site preparation that goes with it. This is a beautiful piece of land that will take less grading. It will take less in terms of utilities, in particular sewer. And there is the future site that goes along with that, so usable land. And there is a fourth piece that goes along with that. And I've lost it in my mind, but I will come back and give you the fourth one in just a little bit. So we have this on the agenda for you to see. This is the design that has taken several months to develop with a lot of collaboration amongst the community. You're going to see over to the right, and there are 4 stars. So let's just start not with the stars, but where the stars are located. So as you see to the right and bottom, there are 3 classroom wings. And those classroom wings typically have what we would categorize as the core areas, the English, science, math, social sciences. There is a dotted line on the bottom, and that is the 3rd wing, which is 500 approximately classroom seats that will not be added in this bond issue if approved. That is for future growth down the road. So what we have is a 1,000 student classroom setting that can be expanded up to 1,500 in the future. You also see that there are some other stars. The very top would be pool or natatorium in the future. The Board of Education has decided not to move forward with that at this time, but can be designed and will be designed in the program for possible future expansion. There is what's called a black box theater or a classroom, and that is kind of in the middle and the star to the left. And that would be added on to the fine arts or to the theater. There is an auditorium, there is scene shop and everything else, dressing rooms that go along with it. The black box is an added feature for future growth. And we talked about the young adult program. That would be added on as well to the classroom wing if moving forward and going for that. I want to talk a little bit about the young adult program. We have that in place right now. Do we have a specific room for it? Yes and no. Do we have things that could be added to that room? Yes, they could. The young adult program is for 18 to 21. It is for those students that still need education beyond that 18 age and still are part of the responsibility of the district to educate. Can that be done in another setting? And is it being done in another setting right now? Yeah. Those things can be done in storefront, they can be done at home. There's a lot of vocation that goes along with it. So those students are out in the workforce, learning trainings and trades and moving forward in that regard. So young adult program could be added to this design in the future. This is just the 2 different stories. It is a 3-story if you look at it that way. The gym is on a lower level, so there is no 2nd or 3rd story attached to the gym. But it's a top loading gym, so it goes down, and that's obviously to the left. The 2nd story to the classrooms, it is a 2-story for the classroom wings. So this is down over to the right, And again, the dotted line would be that third section, or capacity up to 500 more students to be added onto at some point in time. So that gives you, again, the future design of the high school. A lot of collaboration through community, teachers. In fact, today, the architects and engineers were out meeting with the teachers, trying to get a lot of different input that goes on within those classrooms. There's a lot of talk about CTE, or Career and Technical Education. This is a lot of information, and certainly something that I think the community needs to know about. What you have, and this is coming from the Department of Education, the Nebraska Department of Education. So they say there are 4 core academics, and they range anywhere from agricultural, business, to health, to commercial and trades, and within that, there are 16 different career clusters. For example, career clusters, up here in the purple, so that'd be the upper right, is communication and arts, information technology. Within that, there are 63 different occupations. So when we say CTE, Career and Technical Education, there is a bevy of programs. There is a lot that goes into those programs as we move forward. I think there is a thought that that is maybe construction trades, where we're looking at electricity, we're looking at small engines, we're looking at woods, things of that nature. Those are true, but there's a lot more that goes along with CTE, Career and Technical Education, than just those trades alone. As I said, 83 different careers as of the last few years. I would contend that some of those were not careers 10 years ago, and there will be more or different careers in the next decade that can be added to this. So career and technical education is important, and it is something we need to take a look at. And in fact, we do have coursework in place now for career and technical education. As you look at it, you see business management, marketing, you can see the health sciences, transportation, and a lot of different things that go along with that. Some of those that have an asterisk by them are a 3-course series. So a student may take a semester or a year, but 3 of those as they move forward in the program. This is in addition to the requirements for high school education that include the 4 years of math and science, 4 years of math, English, social studies, and 3 years of science. So as we look at this, there is a lot that goes into CTE as we move forward. This is the proposed bond issue tonight. Now I'm going to show you 2 different sets of numbers here. First off, keep in mind that what has been in publication, what has been put in presentations before can change. And as the public has requested us to change these. So as we look at this, the total dollar amount is $153.7 million. Within that, we're looking at the high school and all the rooms, the ancillary support rooms. So this is the administrative offices and everything, gym, locker rooms that go into a high school, 4,000 students. We've separated some things out, CTE and some of the outbuildings that go along with a, what I think is enhancing and a part of the high school education. Then we have some district upgrades that will go into every building, and the expansion of the current stadium, which is located at the current high school. I'm going to break this out a little bit because there are some additional costs that go along with just plain brick and mortar. So as you look at it, you have a guaranteed maximum price, that's the GMP, of the Construction Management at Risk Group, that's the CM. And that is, again, mainly brick and mortar. But there are a lot of things that go into that dollar amount. And so you have equipment by owner. You have to put desks and chairs in those rooms. And there's a lot of other things. For example, the displays that we're looking at this evening are part of those. Architectural and engineering fees. all the work that the engineers and architects have done up to this point. And there's a lot of work that goes along with getting something approved and passed by not only the city of Omaha, but fire marshals, electrical engineers, things of that nature. A lot of different inspections that go along with that. Public infrastructure improvements. That is the roads, the sewer, the utilities, the many things that go along with putting that in. Now, if you're building a home, a lot of those things are done by the SID or the owner beforehand. But we, as a school district, are responsible to put a lot of those things in as well. Jurisdictional and utility expenses. Again, there's fees that go along, pioneer fees to connect to a water line, MUD, OPPD, lots of different fees that go along with that. General expenses that go along with surveys, soil testing, well testing, and as you can read on. And then you have to have contingency fees. This is a budget for things that change during the construction phase. And this percentage of around 3.5% to 4% for a new construction is fairly common that go along with that. So the fiscal consultant, that's the bonding that goes along with issuing the bonds. As you can see in the very small print, and we apologize for that there is an additional $1.62 million that goes along with this total. So if you're quickly doing this total, this is not all 153.7 million. There is almost 152 million in this list, and another 1.6 that go along with the stadium and the safety. Those all together add up to that 153.7. There's been some discussion that there's a lot of money in activities. Number one, activities and academics go hand in hand in high school. As you can see, the high school has done very well in the academics. Excellent district, one of the handful that are in the state of Nebraska. Above ACT averages, and we have been for years above the Nebraska state average in terms of state testing. But athletics or activities are a very big part of a high school education. 65 to 70% of our students are a part of some sort of activity. And we've had great success in the past few years. However, what I want to point out in this pie chart is that 91% of the costs are going to the academics. And a small portion is going to those activities, which I would contend is still a huge part of a high school education. Construction management at risk. We've decided to go through this for the first time in this district's history. And there are some positives that go along with that. So there is a relationship with the construction management. Keep in mind, in the past, the architects that built the building put it on paper, put it out for bid, and then a construction crew comes in and builds it based on those prints. Now we have hand-in-hand development. We understand cost controls and can be a little more efficient. What is in the field may be different than what's on the drawing board and vice versa. Having those people work together on such a large project is advantageous to everybody moving forward. So, cost management, fees are negotiated, input is given right away, and there's the GMP, the guaranteed maximum price. And then we know what things are out there and what are not from that construction management as we move forward. So the Board of Education made this decision based on the large size of this project, and we think it's advantageous moving forward to do a construction management at risk project. The tax impact, we're not pulling any punches here, okay? This is a large ask of the community. And so there is a 10-cent increase, a maximum annual increase of about $25 per month. Yet, I don't make light of that. What we have is tonight, the final vote. That is a resolution that is before the board this evening. The language has to be in front of the election commissioner in the hand by Wednesday. October 3rd is the first time that ballots, if you haven't requested a mail-in ballot, you would not receive it on October 3rd, but you can request a mail ballot through the election commissioner's office. The 11th, you can go in and early vote. The 21st is the deadline to register to vote. So that's important for a community like ours because there are a lot of new people move in. And if you don't change your address, then you're not voting in this area. So you must change if you've moved lately. 28th, absentee ballot, and then November 8th is the election day. My apologies because the language is long, but this is the language that you'll see on the ballot. And so in short, and I mean respect to the language, but in short, it's saying 153 million. Many of you said, well, you said it was 153.7. Okay, the 0.7, $700,000 can be taken and absorbed by the general budget. Typically, the district does not ask for things that have a short lifespan, like a laptop, to be bonded for 25 years. Therefore, they take those monies out of the general fund as time moves forward. So it is moved down from 53.7 to 153 million, with that 702,000 and change moving into the general budget. So there is the language that the board has in front of them this evening. And that concludes the presentation. From the board, are there any questions?
Dr. Hawk, yes.
Thank you again, Dr. Hawk, for that update. Are there any questions from the board? If there are none.
Sorry.
Oh, yes, sorry.
Thank you, Dr. Hawk. Just a quick clarification. So this district had no further growth, but attendance remained consistent. Let's pretend that might be a thing. What does the enrollment, can you just reiterate those stats from that slide on the current enrollment for 5 through 8?
Yes. Current enrollment 5 through 8 includes 5th grade at 364 all the way up to 8th grade at 279 and various numbers in between. That is 1,282 students.
And then again, just thank you for that. And another clarifying question, that puts us over capacity at the high school by about
130.
plus students, about 5 to 10%.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yes. I do want to make mention, I said I would come back to it. So grading, site preparation, sanitary sewer, roads, and usable land. Those are the 4 things that must be taken into consider for site preparation. That mitigates the difference, if you will, between the cost of land for each of the properties.
Back to Valerie's point. Back to Valerie's point about the capacity. Do you recall what the largest capacity was before we built the middle school of that high school? I know I'm asking this just up to you.
So can you, okay, so
Before the middle school was ready, when we had, and it was over capacity at that point.
right, at the time we built the middle school, we didn't have the additional wing on there. So the capacity of the high school was 750.
Got it, that's right.
And we had, I believe, Dr. Bloomkamp, over 900, right at 900. So about 150 over capacity at that point in time. And those that lived there can tell you that it was crowded.
Any further questions from the board?
I was just gonna ask a couple questions on the high school outdoor stadium, the renovation, additional seating. What is the actual renovation so people understand what that is?
Thank you, Tim. The renovation is typically, will be on the home side. So what you're doing is you're taking out the current crossbox area and taking what is the plaza now and building up seats in that area so that you can expand the capacity of that stadium. So that would be phase 2. And all the board is looking at is phase 2 at this point in time. Phase 3 will be moving to the visitor side, adding the capacity over in that, and then adding concessions, restroom on that side, so that it mitigates any confusion or crossing, home versus visitors, things of that nature. So phase 1, which is just completed, did add more concession and restroom to that area, and it did add 2 more sections of bleachers, what would be, I would call it to the east of the home section at this point in time. So you're moving up in this situation, and then phase 3 would be moving over to the visitor side.
Where would the press box go to?
Press box would go up.
Above the
Exactly.
additional bleachers?
If you didn't move the press box, you would block a lot of vision. You would really hamper the efficiency, capacity that could be in that area.
I guess I was just kind of thinking, I'd ask the question so the public knows to know how much we've spent prior on facilities for the stadium. And I was kind of hoping to get the bond down just a little bit more to 1.2 for the renovation. But talking with Mark before the meeting, it sounds like it was a pretty packed house up there on Friday, and they maybe shut us down. Is that correct?
A fire marshal can shut you down. I don't know that we've ever had that in an outdoor, but it certainly causes some safety concerns whether somebody shuts you down or not. And so I believe the capacity, the expansion of the capacity of the stadium is
If this bond gets approved and goes forward, when does this start for the second phase?
well, that's a good question. This is not part of the construction management at risk. So this could be designed and done very similar to what past experiences have. So I think we could design in the next 6 to 8 months and put it out for bid sometime spring, maybe late spring, and could be under construction summer. Whether it could get done in time for the next fall season might be debatable, but I won't put a contractor under that pressure, I guess is what I'm saying. But in the next 6 to 8 months. Well, and I should say that if the bond issue is approved this evening, if the voters approve it in November, then I think you start to do the work or design.
Thank you.
And I have one follow-up question from that good dialogue. Are there any other elements here that are not part of the construction management at risk in addition to the expansion, namely the security upgrades is what I was looking
The security upgrades and the expansion of the stadium are the 2 that are outside the scope of the construction management risk.
for. Thank you for clarifying.
I also want to and tell the public as well that as we've gone through this, certainly a large budget, but there was somewhere between 70 and 80 million that were considered by the board that did not make this list this evening. And so that looks at many different things in terms of repair, in terms of other expansion, warehouse, elementary, things of that nature that have been moved off of this. Again, a lot of deliberation, a lot of input, and not all wants or needs were addressed or added to this bond. Again, about 70, 80 million were taken off.
Seeing no other questions from the board, but knowing the board will have an opportunity later in the meeting to ask further, I think we'll proceed to public comment now. Again, if you are interested in sharing your thoughts with the board this evening, pass up a yellow sheet here, and we'll make sure that you get your opportunity. So some ground rules for public comment today. So this is a little different than open forum in a regular meeting, which would accept comment on any topic that you wish to speak of. This evening at this special meeting, we ask that you keep your comments to those focused on the bond proposal. You'll have 5 minutes to share your thoughts. The board won't engage in discussion or questions, not that we're not interested in having some dialogue or in answering your questions. But I don't want to get, I don't want ambiguity around your speaking time. If we start getting into dialogue and questions, I want to make sure that everybody has a fair time to share their thoughts with the board. If you do have questions that we can answer, the plan would be to note them, and we'll see if Dr. Hawk or the board can answer those questions at the end of your comments. So also, I'll be as friendly as I can, and I give grace around the time. I do ask that you keep your comments to 5 minutes. This evening, when you have a minute left, I will say 1 minute. I will try to say it nicely, but would ask that you kind of find the opportunity to bring your comments to a conclusion. So with that, we'll get started, and I would invite Bill Bone to start us off this evening.
Looks like I am representing the geezer.
You're as young as you feel, Bill.
I didn't really hear all your guidelines. About 5 minutes. I guess I'm here tonight mainly to like to thank the board and Dr. Hawk for looking at our concerns. My wife and I attended all 3 of the informational meetings, and I guess because of my history with landfills over the years, I was very concerned about the city street. And now it looks like we're going to have a great location. But I think that you hear a lot of comments about cost. But to me, the most important thing is that our per student costs, lowest in the state. And if you look at any business, you say they're doing a good job. And that's the case. So I compliment Dr. Hogg and the board for that. And I think we have a good cross-section on our school board. And I'm sure you all, no matter what the situation, family, social, you hear many opinions about what people would like to have. So we support the bond issue entirely, and have confidence in Dr. Hogg and the board. Just looking at the facilities that we have, it's just really, we have company from Texas. We took them to the schools and showed them, and because of the problem. Just say thanks.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you, Bill. Not intending to go in age order here, but Chris Behrens, I would invite you to share with the board.
I guess I will be the first NIMBY tonight. I guess living at 180th and Military, NIMBY not in my backyard, and I know I just have trouble understanding how we already have 4 schools within a mile of 168th and Military, which creates traffic issues for anyone that lives out there. Now they're building homes, which is good. They're building homes right next to the middle school section. You know, another 200 and some homes, which will also dump on the Military. And now we want to put a high school in the same section. I have trouble grasping how we have to put now 5 schools adjacent to the same section of land. And that's my problem. Like, you know, when you built the 2 schools at 168th, I said nothing. I didn't come to the meeting and complain because it needed them. It's like, when you keep loading that area up, maybe it's great for parents to come and go, I don't know. But it's not great for anyone that lives there. And it's gonna get a lot worse. So I guess maybe we should put money aside, as a joke, maybe we should put money aside. And I was a high school kid who probably didn't drive as safe as I could, which that's high school kids, but maybe we should just stick that section. Maybe we could budget some money for bank turns. Because I know other kids are gonna drive there and how we're gonna be dealing with that for years. And I don't believe the county has the money or the resources to put in the infrastructure we're gonna need for the road support. And I also know like the 180th issue, 180th is never gonna go through with military. I don't see how that will ever work because you have the dam site that they have to go over. And you have a housing development smack in the middle of 180th as well on the State Street side. So that's my voicing. I think the work that was done was great. I think the facility is great. But I've got to believe there's other locations in the district boundaries with as many square miles as it contains that could hold a school, a high school that would spread out the housing, that would spread out the school and the infrastructure of it as well. And it's my reminder, the last thing is, it's my understanding that you can approve, you can go for the filing on the first, the bond filing. You could also vote on the bond without a site selection. That may not be preferable, but I'm just asking for more time and consideration. And I'm not, you know, I'm gonna vote for the bond, but I'm asking that more time be given for site selection, because that is not something that has to happen in order to file on Thursday, on the 1st, or to have the bond election. Thank you.
Chris, thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Hawk, don't want to deny Chris. Thank you for sharing, Chris. So just to bring clarity to the question raised, is it technically possible to advance a proposal to the ballot without having the site selected?
Yes, it is. However, voters typically want to know really 3 things. One is, what is it going to be? Where is it going to be? And how much is it going to cost? And so those things are very common questions as you move forward. Technically, the answer is yes, you can move forward without a site being selected.
And would this be a good time, if it's not, you can tell me, but we didn't show it tonight, but we have in the past of how many pieces of property that we went through, and our rating system and kind of how we went through all of this.
Yes.
It's like, it's hard to find the ideal site, but I think we put a lot of work into trying to find that. And could you just go through a little bit of
Absolutely.
what all we did to try to find
Dr. Hawk,
sites?
might I suggest, since we have an action item on land, that we cover that in that part and continue on with comment? Thank you. A good question. I want to make sure we get it discussed, but it's their time now. So, Joe Rear.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Board. I'm from the Woodlands Crossing subdivision across the street to the west. And my first question, do you have any idea, Doctor, where the students are going to be coming from? What direction at all?
Yes.
This is your site map here. Are they going to be coming from the south or the north or the west, or any idea? I'm just trying to figure out a traffic pattern.
Yeah, so Joe, again, kind of bending the rules here to answer a question and process. I think the answer is yes. They'll be coming from all directions. There will be a time when we set boundaries that's fairly far into the future, but Dr. Hawk,
What we're looking at, just the geographics right now, majority will be coming from the southern part of the district.
Okay.
But Mr. Byers is correct. Boundaries will be set at a later time. Because if it takes 4 years to build, between now and 4 years, there could be a lot of different things that occur. So it's difficult to set boundaries until the year before it opens.
Is there any way you can pull up that site map again, that we could see where the property is located on that, where the building is located on that piece of land?
Again, I'll let the board answer that, sir.
We'll cover that again, and did you have a,
I just had a question about the entrances. I was looking at the entrances. There's actually no entrances. You know, we're in the Woodlands Crossing subdivision, and there's not an entrance that boundaries are boundary there. So it looks like you're gonna create 2 entrances off 156 or 168th, and then another entrance further north on 180th, and those will be the only 3 entrances into the complex. Is that correct?
we'll bring up the site map again, talk about that on our action item, and I'll be sure to ask some questions about discussions we've had on possible entrance locations.
I'm just trying to think about that traffic that's gonna be at 180th and Rainwood there. But it looks like if you go back to the original site plan, you're not gonna have any entrances around that corner. They're gonna be on 168th, there's gonna be 2 on 168th and then 1 on 180th north, so.
And I'll explain that in terms of what the city of Omaha requires. And certainly in collaboration and have to get their approval as we get those entrances done. So I'll talk to that.
So you do have to get the city of Omaha's approval on that?
It's a city planning, yes, 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 we do.
Oh, thank you.
We will answer that, we promise you.
All right, thank you.
Joe, thank you. Carol Diesel-Sunday is next. Good evening, Carol.
Good evening. I will try not to go over. Last time I was over. We've known, I guess, that our district is growing and we needed a bond issue. We had growth and we were going to need stuff going on. But it seems like all of a sudden we're rushing in. I know I've said that the last time, but we're rushing into what's there and what's not there. And when I look at the timeline, we had it last time, we had it this time. The board is probably thinking we've been on this for months, but to the public, it looks very different. The majority of the public didn't get any input until July. And so we had less than a month to figure all this out. After our last meeting, there were some new items in there, so I literally did a spreadsheet that said, okay, here's what we originally had, here's what's here. I'm gonna highlight some differences that I noted. I found out I can't give it to you, so I won't. The biggest line item that showed up on there was an additional facility cost of $32.9 million. That's a noticeable number to me, when that's more than the cost of an elementary school. And what we got was for utility hookups and furniture. That's a lot of utility hookups and furniture, and I think buildings all need utilities, so I didn't know why that would be new. Because every building we're gonna build, we're not gonna put the toilets in and say, oh, by the way, go use the porta potty. Other ones that I noticed is the softball and baseball fields without the turf. That's doubled since we originally did it to $5 million. Vocational tech program, that wasn't on the proposal. It looks like it might be on it now, but it's been cut in about half. And it's my understanding we have maybe 200 students there, and those students have to be turned away. Like, there's not enough spaces for the kids that want to enroll there. And those classrooms help make welders, plumbers, construction management people, architects, all sorts of other things that some of those are 4-year degrees, some aren't. And we're cutting that area, and that just seems not fair to those kids. There was even mention of co-oping, and I think that would be extremely unfair to those kids because they either get less class time or they miss something because we're gonna have to be transporting them. So I guess I would definitely not, that's just not something I think we should consider. And then I look at we're looking at tennis courts, and the cost for the tennis courts for the number of kids playing that is more than double the cost for the vocational classrooms for the number of kids we have in there. And that just seems wrong in every way that I can think of. Activities are super important, I agree, but to spend more on a few kids playing one sport or one activity than we do in the classroom doesn't seem right to me. Stadium expansion is still in proposal, and I just heard about safety concerns. One question that I have is when we have 2 high schools, all of the people aren't going to be going to every game. Like Millard South doesn't go to Millard North games, et cetera. So will we need as much capacity as we're talking about if everybody's not going to be going to the same Friday night football game? The asphalt track, I'm still confused on that, on the post-tension track, that little bit of extra we're gonna do, because my understanding on that would be we'd have to rip up the asphalt to put in the post-tension. So I'd say if we're gonna do it, we should do it right the first time. The fine arts black box was discussed a little bit tonight. That was on there, again, that was new, that hadn't been on there before, with not really a lot of explanation. The security upgrades was a new item again on the list, and my question is, if we don't have the bond issue, for some reason it wouldn't get approved, does that just get skipped? Or is there another mechanism for that? Same question on the HVAC systems, that's listed in there, has been listed in there, and we know that those are gonna go out. We know flooring's gonna go out, it's a matter of time. So do we have cash reserves for that, or what have we been doing in the past to cover those costs? Because they're significant when they happen, and we know they're gonna happen, it's not an if, it's a when. So I guess what I'm asking the board is for, I heard somebody talk about land, I think that we really need to have more public input, because what I think is right or wrong isn't necessarily what my neighbors think, and most of the public has not really had a chance to express their opinions and get, to have a voice in spending $150 million. And I think that, delaying, a bond issue or 6 months or doing a special election is worth it if we get it right and get what our kids need and what everybody's checkbook can for. So I'm just begging the board to give it some time and get some input, and just delay it a little bit. Not saying not to have it, just to delay. Thank you.
Thanks, Carol. Abby Niles.
My name is Abby Niles. My family have lived in the district since 2013. According to Bennington Law, I moved out here for the smaller schools, even though that didn't last long, but I do appreciate the attempt to remain Class B and know that means there is an urgent need for a second high school. I was very disheartened to learn that the board had voted yes to position the future high school on or next to a former landfill. While I recognize the need for the second high school, I was prepared to vote no for the upcoming bond. I was very relieved to learn at the last meeting the decision to find the new high school site, and I want to thank you. Thank you for listening to us. At the end of the day, we are all just moms and dads who want the absolute best for our children. So again, thank you for listening to us, and I encourage this type of dialogue between the school board and the community for big decisions in the future.
Megan Patrons.
Right at the bottom. I'm kind of worried, so I apologize for lack of eye contact. I'm going to read directly from this. But I'm Megan Asian. My family moved here in 2018, and I would love to start with a note of gratitude to each and every one of you for volunteering your time, your energy to a common goal of making Bennington the best place to live, work, and raise a family. Our community is full of people with unique gifts and talents, and we are so fortunate that you lend your efforts in such a beneficial way. My family moved to Bennington in 2018 from Northwest Omaha, in an elementary school that we absolutely loved. We stumbled upon a home that fit the needs and a community that we knew we could build a great life for our family in. The schools were an added bonus that we had no idea our family would benefit so greatly from. Our oldest son came from a gifted and talented program at OPS, and upon entering Bennington Public Schools as a 6th grader, he tested into 2 grade levels ahead in math and qualified for the HAL program. He excelled academically and finished his freshman year of high school on the Presidential Honor Roll and lettered in academics. About a year ago, we were driving through our old area of town, and he, didn't get emotional, sorry guys. He told me, "Mom, I'm so glad we moved to Bennington. I can't imagine what my life would be like if we didn't." And he was right. I too cannot imagine what our lives would be like if we hadn't moved to Bennington. Our middle son attended 4 different schools since we moved here. We didn't fully anticipate that this would be our reality, but we embraced it, and we helped our son develop the life skills of adaptability, resiliency, and perseverance. He showed us these skills every day, and he has been acknowledged as a leader in his classrooms. We know that this is not an easy transition for kids, and we are so grateful for the opportunity to help guide him alongside some of our amazing elementary and middle school staff. Our youngest daughter is the biggest Bennington success story. Born at 34 weeks and spending an extensive amount of time in the NICU, we have no idea what her cognitive development would look like. She started school with her preschool peers, hitting all of the appropriate milestones, only to start kindergarten and to learn that she was so very far behind. She was lost in the shuffle of who was in most need of additional services, and she remained at the bottom of that list. It wasn't until we moved to Bennington and had the help of an amazing first grade teacher, Mrs. Kim Mitchell, you rock. She advocated for her endlessly and had her tested and qualified for additional services in reading and math. She continues to benefit from the most amazing teachers and support staff, and we are so grateful for them, the school psychologists and the interventionalists. She has the confidence she was lacking and is inching closer to exactly where she needs to be academically. I know this is all in part to smaller class sizes, individualized educational programs, and an excellent learning standard and dedicated staff. This was not a mom brag moment. I'm sharing because my family is a direct beneficiary of the growth of Bennington, like so many people in this room. My family has a spectrum of comprehension and social and emotional abilities, and I honestly do not know where we would be without the support of this amazing school district. I am here today in support of the school bond and the necessary actions to continue to grow Bennington Public Schools in the very best ways. I am for a district that supports all students with thoughtful and inclusive facilities, educational opportunities, class sizes that continue to aid in individual student needs. We know that in order to surpass all of what makes Bennington Public Schools already great, we must invest. We must invest our time, our energy, and our dollars. I will have a student in this district until 2030, and I can't wait to see all the things to come for Bennington Public Schools. Thank you again for all of your leadership.
Lindsay Adams.
I also have a novel. Before I start, I want to thank you. Thank you for stepping up to take on this volunteer role. You are parents, you are neighbors, you are friends, you are community. The volunteer hours you wrap up in board meetings, committee meetings, reading email, and all of the other tasks you go through making sure Bennington continues to be one of the most sought after districts in our area is appreciated from our family and many people throughout the community. After doing research on the school district when our firstborn child turned 1, we chose to make Bennington our home by the time he would be entering kindergarten. There was a Bennington mom that I knew from committee work that took me on a driving tour of the neighborhoods and brought me into each elementary school and introduced me to the principals so I could get a feel for which area we would like to move to. That was small town vibes right there. We built our first home in Hanover Falls and we started a small business here. Our neighborhood then and the drive into town was surrounded by rolling farmland, which have now grown into subdivisions instead of crops. It was hard to see the turnover, yet we understood it and we respected it. My husband and I attend any meeting which discusses district growth plans. We made the decision in May of 2019 to move into city limits of Bennington because we learned from one of those meetings that our current neighborhood was a large attendance center that could mean our daughter would possibly be in 3 different schools in her elementary career. This would also introduce our family to many other amenities for us feeling more connected to our community. Our oldest is now a 6th grader at Bennington Middle School, and we have a 3rd grader at Bennington Elementary. I had the luxury of walking across the street from my office to eat lunch with my son in his kindergarten and 1st grade years. By 2nd grade, that was no longer an option as Bennington Elementary was busting out of the seams. That same year, I felt I possibly also needed to enroll in anger management classes after a 20-minute wait on 156th Street just to drop them off. We felt much needed relief after Anger Point opened. I was a tad bit nervous for what the middle school drop-off pickup plan would look like, given all I had heard. But with the second middle school opening, I have to say anger management classes are likely in the rearview mirror and hoping it remains that way. It is my understanding that the current enrollment of fifth graders to eighth graders exceeds the current high school capacity, so I'm a bit nervous what that could look like if we do not properly prepare for it now. We know our principals, teachers, staff. If a neighbor friend of mine is running late, the kids can jump in with me because we're going to the same school. I drive down my aunt and uncle's neighborhood in Pacific Hollow and see signs for numerous private schools, Millard North, Millard West, and here in Bennington, we know each other. Our kids are in the same classes, and our schools are our neighborhood families. We are a small community who is behind their school. We, like many others, moved to Bennington for that small community feel. In the same small community sense weaves in and around all of the walls and halls of each and every school building. My husband grew up in Wichita, attending one of those mega huge school districts and high schools, while I grew up in a smaller community in Northeast Iowa. My parents were on the Athletic Booster Club. We attended the Pancake Feeds, Friday night football tailgates. My dad was also on the school board. He went to the library with one of the principals. And sadly, back home right now, our rival schools are having to consolidate because they are stagnant or declining in their growth. Like my elementary is actually now a storage building for the district. I learned from my parents to serve your community by getting involved, being informed, and support your school. It was standing room only this past Friday night at the Scott game. My son and his friends proudly wore their Badger football jerseys to support the big high school kids. High school plays sell out. You see the blue bees painted on driveways. This community backs their schools as well, and that feels so good to know we are raising our family like how me and my siblings grew up.
1 minute.
Nobody likes higher taxes for no good reason. This approximately $25 a month increase we will see is worth it to our family to make sure when our kids start to age through the school system that we still have that small community feel. My stance on the bond is likely known. I support it. We did have some concerns, and my friends and I took it to a school board member, and we felt heard. Thank you for that, and thank you to the board for listening to all the community concerns and changing direction. And I just also wanted to say that it's super cool to think that our school district would be the leader in the space of career, trade, and technical and collegiate partnerships. And also that the decisions you're making today not only affect our kids who are already enrolled in the school system, but also affect the Bennington School District experience that our little 18-month-old deserves as well.
Lindsay, thank you. Do a mic check there, Rob.
Yes, sir.
Bobby Lucas, while we're getting the technical details figured out here.
Hi, good evening. Thank you, Dr. Koch, for the presentation. This is the first opportunity that I've had to really learn about this information, so bear with me. I'm going to have a few questions. Bobby Lucas, I live the northwest corner of 180th and Military. I am on the hard corner, so I will be fronting what the new proposed school is. And I want to say first and foremost that I am in support of the high school. But not understanding how this works, I do have a list of questions that either I can present and wait for information, or I'd be happy to take a phone number or an email address or someplace where I can direct those questions to. But with regard to form of topic, questioning based on the site plan that was identified, I'm unable to tell, is the school looking to acquire all of the land from Military to Bennington Road? Or is it up to where the gravel road is? That's one of the questions that I have. The next one has to do with regard to traffic impact analysis. We're taking a look at, and discussion has been with regard to 168, as well as going across Military. Understanding that there's been a significant amount, we've got how many high schools, elementary schools, middle schools within 1.5 mile radius. However, no infrastructure has been improved with regard to the roads. Living across Military, I recognize they're doing a great job of trying to patch the shoulders. But I do see the school buses go by every single day, and I feel for those school bus drivers. The roads are not wide enough to capture all of the traffic that's going to be enclosed there. Also recognizing that the access off of 180th Street into the school looks or appears as though it's going to be directly across from Thayer, which enters into Woodland Crossing. Is there going to be a traffic light put in at some point in time? I understand and I've seen traffic light was put in on 168 going down to the middle school. Bless the sheriff's heart for having been out there all winter long, trying to direct traffic. The same thing will be happening here. So I'm just wondering if that is taken into consideration. Improvement on the gravel road on the north side. When I built my house 11 years ago, understood that that road would not be improved until a developer purchased the land and would make those road improvements. So going back to my initial question, is the land being purchased all the way to Bennington Road? And if so, is the city going to be improving the quarter mile or whatever that length is gravel road? I have in my hand something that's going to be appearing on September 7th for Lotus, who is providing a site plan and presentation to the city for 300 plus single family homes in addition to commercial on the northeast corner of 180th and Military. Again, right across from my front door. I support the school bond issuance in the school much more than I do 300 plus homes, in addition to small commercial. If you take a look at, and I know that more than likely the traffic impact analysis has not been prepared, but for those of us that live in Woodlands Crossing and those around, the traffic is going to be much greater with 300 homes than it will be for a high school. So that is, honestly, I would much rather have that. We don't know what the value of those homes are going to be, what's built or being proposed. And, I respect the developers on the vision of what they want to do, but I also need to take a look at, what impact does it have on our neighborhood as well. So some questions, additional questions that I have. There was discussion with regard to future expansion of the school for another wing. Has consideration been given to the fact that it honestly is cheaper to build that new wing now than it is at some point in time later on? So a question would be, have you given consideration, what is the cost of that additional wing? And could you increase this bond allocation and do the construction now versus later? And then secondly, I don't know if this particular bond allocation has caveats in it. Can you use that for road improvements? And if so, would you give that consideration as well? I'm not sure of that. I apologize, I don't attend city council meetings, so I don't know what their budget is, what's being spent for the year and what's been allocated for future road improvements. But if this is something that we're going to consider of bringing either 300 single family homes or bringing the high school into this, we really need to take a look at our road situation.
Sorry, I missed your 1 minute warning. Did you have other thoughts to share before you conclude?
Yeah, just answer questions, and if there's some information that I can get on where to direct my questions, I'd be happy to take that.
Thank you. I took notes. I think we'll address at least a few of them as we discuss site. If we don't, please do send those questions to Dr. Hawk, and the meeting will make sure that we get answers as soon as we can. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Those are the end of the yellow sheets I have before me. Is there anybody else who would like to address the board in public comment tonight?
Just one quick question. Has the board anticipated the increase in tax revenue that's going to happen as we develop the rest of Bennington? And have they taken that into consideration in establishing that 10-cent rise in the mill?
Yeah, I'll ask Dr. Hawk to address that question and kind of how that projection gets made. And we might even leverage Bruce on that. So, but I'll address that when we move to consideration for the bond proposal.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
In regards to the traffic issue, has anybody from the board actually sat out there during, before and after school, watching how the buses have to go off the shoulders just to avoid oncoming traffic and the oncoming, just average sized cars, not big SUVs, not big pickup trucks. But I was coming home a couple of times and the school buses, both times, had to go off the shoulder on 168. And the cars were also off the shoulder, because if they would have went where the center line is, they would have collided. So that is a big concern.
Sure. So I'm wanting to stick to procedure politely. I understand your question. I'm hearing it as you have a traffic concern. I will take your question as to whether or not a board member has sat out there as rhetorical. Is there anybody else who would like to approach the front of the room and share comments on this proposal? Okay, hearing none, thank you very much for sharing. We do appreciate it. Now we'll move to our action items, the first of which is consideration of a site purchase and sale agreement for the purchase of 76 acres of real property located north or near North 180th Street and Military/Rainwood.
Pardon me for sliding through the slides, going back to the site. I would like to, if the board allows me to, we do have monies budgeted, and the city of Omaha will require certain things as we move forward in this site. For example, we're going to have to create turning lanes, just as we did on 168th Street, for entrance into this, not only on Military/Rainwood, but on 180th. To address the issue of 180th and the purchase of land. Purchases land for slightly less than 80 acres, but it was this section of land. It would not extend all the way to Bennington Road. However, the city of Omaha is looking and in all reality will require that the gravel be paved. So 180th from Military/Rainwood to Bennington Road is budgeted, and it's in this proposed to be paved all the way through. Obviously, turning lanes, addressing buses and things of that nature. So widening of Military, widening of 180th as we move forward, and then paving all the way down to Bennington Road is budgeted, is a part of this site proposal. One of the things that was talked about, it is correct that White Lotus Group has put before the city of Omaha a plan for residential in this area. In fact, we are purchasing from White Lotus Group. And so those 200, 300 homes is now turned into a high school site. And so as we look at this, the agreement that we have before the board this evening is for a price very high, $86,500 per acre. That is $70,000 for the site itself, the property, and $16,500 per acre for pre-engineering and work that White Lotus Group has done with the city and moving forward in this. If you're looking at other sites, we did initially look at 7 different sites that expanded to close to 10 different sites. And the engineers and architects looked at that on a matrix level, anywhere from giving points to roads, giving points to grading. Site selection had 30 plus points to look at to see if it was suitable, available for site construction of a school. I would say that this site graded higher than any of the other sites that was looked at by the school district. So this is over $6 million for the purchase of this land. There is others infrastructure, the roads and everything that goes with it is in a different bond issue, but the 6 million has already been approved by the voters in 2018 and 2020 bonds previous. So this is not in addition to the 153 million. That money is already there and available to the school district for the purchase of this land. There will be traffic studies. There continues to be traffic studies, and those traffic studies will then dictate what is required of the school district by the City of Omaha Planning Commission as we move forward. And I believe I answered the majority of the questions. If the board has other questions that go along with that. The entrances, as we go through there, do they mesh up with other entrances? Are there going to be traffic lights? Typically, that's another traffic study. The lights are not owned and operated by the school district, so they have to be improved in this situation, probably by Douglas County. There may be additional zoning that moves forward, but even if it's zoned by the City of Omaha Planning Commission, which is a 3-mile radius, there is ownership of the roads, which usually occurs through Douglas County. That is not set in stone, but that will be moving forward in that regard. Again, one of the things that is before the board this evening is it's approximately 76 acres. It's a little more, 76, I think, 0.3, but that is in your agreement. And it is a total cost of $86,500 per acre, and which pushes that close to a $6.5 billion. This site has been vetted. This site has been reviewed by the architects and engineers. This is a usable space that can be used for not only just the high school, but future sites down the road. And it fits in an attendance center. Anywhere you put a school is going to be difficult. When you put an elementary in a site, it usually attracts homes. Middle school, a little less. High school, not so much because of what you've heard this evening. There is traffic and there is activities at nights where there isn't at an elementary. There is differences in stadium lights as opposed to even just as little as a decade ago. Stadium lights today are LED lights, and they are focused not on a glow or a pollution of light, but directly down. A good example of that is the current buildings that we have, the parking lots at Stratford Elementary and Bennington South. And another good example of that is the simple infrastructure road lights of something that is right across from the current middle school or the middle school, Bennington Middle School. And those lights are directional LED going down. You do not see the glow of what you normally see with the parking lot. So efficiencies that go along with this. For that, the administration makes the recommendation to the Board of Education to approve the contract that is before you with White Lotus Group to purchase this land for school site number 1, high school number 2, and the possibility of a future site down the road. Are there any questions that I can answer from the board?
When you were talking about the roads, so those entrances are not set in stone either, is that correct?
The entrances may not be set in stone, but there may, in all likelihood, they are not set by the school district. There are lots of maps, calculations that the City of Omaha does to strongly suggest or dictate where those roads will be.
Could you maybe speak to, so certainly top of my list for this site or any site is traffic, right? Because it's an issue for every existing site in the district and every potential site of the district. So can you just talk about the process and timing of traffic studies and, kind of when some of these decisions are made, because the city has a role to play here, county has a role to play, the school district has input but is not necessarily a decision maker, and yet all parties are interested in promoting public safety. And so, can you just describe a little more what that process looks
I
like?
can, but it won't be in as detailed as probably what you want, okay? So there is, well, are you playing with me over there? Or what are you- All right, so, the city of Omaha meets with owners, whether it be a residential developer, whether it be a business person or a school system. And they have rules and regulations that they follow. A very common one is, for example, the corner of 180th and Military/Sherman. Most of the time, a city planner will say you're not going to put a road closer than 1/4 of a mile close to that corner.
An
So,
entrance.
at the, or entrance or road of any sort. So if it is, then it may be a service road that goes along with it. So they're looking at the safety, the stacking, whether it's a four-way stop sign, traffic light, or anything of that nature. They move away from that corner. So you'll see at best an 1/8 of a mile, most of the time 1/4 of a mile. So 1/4 mile, 1/2 mile, 1/4 mile, as you look at those roads. So again, can the public have input? Yes, the public can speak to the district, speak to the residential developer, owner, whatever. And then that person then has a meeting with the city of Omaha and shares that input.
There's a year-long zoning process before we put footing one into the ground here.
That is typically correct. What you're gonna need is a building permit. And so to get that building permit, it takes zoning meetings, planning commission meetings, city council meetings. And there is a process step by step to go through that. And there is time between each of those. So it does take estimated about a year. One of the things we may be able to shorten now with the information we got from the Lotus Group as we move forward, because they have presented some of this information that has been studied by the city of Omaha. So there may be an opportunity to shorten that with the work that's done already.
Fair to say a number of these traffic questions are addressed in that process?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Just to clarify, I know they talked about Military Road widened or how narrow it is. It is extremely dangerous. I farm in that area. Yeah, very large equipment that I have to get down the roads with also. So I do understand how narrow it is. And even when you're in a vehicle or a bus, the widening of the Military Road, correct me if I'm wrong, is only going to be where our property is at, correct? We will not go past that.
That is correct. Typically, Mr. Deason, you are correct. So the widening usually occurs within the entrance or exit of a road. Now, there is still going to be widening that occurs on Military with the middle school. The reason we delayed on that, it was late in the queue, was very expensive to do. It come right out of the queue we did this spring. And the developer, between this property and the next, will have some widening of Military as well as that continues to be developed along Military. But you are correct, only adjacent to the property. The difference is what's going to be required of us from 1/2 mile down to Bennington Road. I don't envision any, on this project, I don't envision anything more than 2 lanes paved down from that 1/2 mile to Bennington Road.
I just wanted to comment to the public that I've racked my brain over this. We've been in tons of meetings, countless hours. We have looked and looked and looked. I'm from this community. I've been here since 1984. Went to school here. All my kids have gone to school here. Gone through everything pretty much in this town. I love the town. We have looked all over for property, and there was some very, very unsuitable ground out there. And this is, as a farmer standpoint, is one of the most beautiful laying pieces of property we could get. There is maybe another option somewhere out there, but I can tell you right now, there's not. We looked and looked and looked, and it would be no cheaper with the running of sewer lines, the running of water, the power, anything, everything. I know this is close to all the other schools. I'm sure people will not be happy with that, but there's gonna be a lot of disappointment no matter what we do. It's a very tough decision. It's, I don't know if it'll ever be right, but it's gonna be right. We do have to do something to expand here, and if we'd have known about this property a long time ago, we probably would have wanted to try to jump on it too. We didn't know that. So what we have found is what we have. The money's there from the last bond issues, or I might not be too for this because that's a lot of money. But we have it. We have to do something, and I think this is an okay thing. We're not done with it. I do concern, like Kara said, where these entrances are coming in and out of the school. I don't know if I appreciate where they're at there, if they could be changed at all. And I'm not saying they can or cannot, but it seems like an awfully long loop to get from one side to the other to get in and out there. Maybe that's the right thing to do, so it's a longer road. I don't know. But,
And Mr. Greason, that's a very good statement that I'll turn into a question. There is some
I apologize, okay.
just a minute. There is some consideration as to where roads are, because you're trying to get traffic off of the main road. So what you're doing is you're creating stacking inside the property. So there may be longer loops internally, thus that has a direct effect of where that road entrance is. So as you get inside, not on the road. So I know that, Tim, I know that was not a question,
yeah, no,
it's some information.
I mean, it's just a visual thing that I can see is, I wonder for ambulances, fire trucks, anything, I mean, it's quite a task to get in there, it looks like right now.
And all of those, absolutely, excuse me, and all of those support systems are looked at as we move forward.
Bobby, I'm sorry, I know you have a question, and I would love to answer it. We're in the business portion of our meeting, and I have a responsibility to conduct that process. So, other questions, comments from the board? I move that the Board of Education of this school district approve selection of approximately 76.3 acres of real property generally located northeast of the intersection of North 180th Street and Rainwood Road, and entering into a site purchase and sale agreement for the purchase of such from the seller, that the board hereby approves and adopts the attached resolution.
Second.
Thank you, Allison. Further discussion or comment? Hearing none, Jody, please call the roll.
Allison? Yes. Tim?
Yes.
Valerie? Yes. Kara? Yes. Heather? Yes. Mark?
Yes, motion carries. Next, we'll consider a resolution for bond election. Dr. Hawk, do you have any further comment to introduce this item?
I really do not. The information is before you. I thank the Board of Education for working with the administration, working with the staff, working with the community. You have started the process months, if not years ago. You have listened to the community, and you have put forth this evening a plan that the community can look at. Again, the bond is for $153 million. The total budget is $153.7. But as we said, we're taking about $700,000, a little more, that will come out of the general fund for items that don't normally fit with a 25-year bond. The resolution was before you. The bond language must be in the hands of the election commissioner by September 1. I think I said Wednesday earlier. That is Thursday. And not that we'll drag our feet or delay, we'll get it in soon. But this will be for the November 8th general election. It will be the language as you saw on the ballot.
Thank you, Dr. Hawk. If you could maybe bring up that language again, while you're doing that, I would move to approve that resolution and language as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Valerie. Discussion.
Could we ask Bruce to come up to answer a couple of questions that I just kind of?
Yeah. If Bruce is willing.
Yeah, correct. More than one. By all means.
You need me by the record?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, please, Sutler with Piper Sandler, Omaha. Yes.
I just, from the last time you were here.
Yes.
2 months ago, maybe? I don't remember what it was. I know it was last.
Seems about right.
I don't remember. Okay, you talked about some negative cash flow in 28 or something. Is there something to worry about to handle that when we get to that point?
Well, I guess within the projections that we've made, and to answer a previous question, just not to get off task. Obviously, working with the board and passing other bond issues, we do add in tax valuation projections based on historical numbers that this school district has seen over a long period of time. Within that, we try to be a little bit conservative with those estimates, but those estimates of growth, of natural growth, of more valuation district are built in. The point I was making at the time at that meeting is essentially in any situation you want to take debt, you have at least interest expense that occurs immediately, right? You're waiting for your actual valuation to grow up, to catch up, so that your value and your tax levy is enough to make debt service payments. Currently, we're looking at 2028 being a period in which you see maybe the lowest cash balance in those accounts based on the projections we've made from this particular standpoint. That's just the economics of it. And I don't think there's necessarily a problem there, other than that's something we want to keep an eye on from the standpoint of, this is why you don't issue $150 million bonds in a singular issue, because your interest expense is going to be too high to catch up with valuation. So we anticipate that this bond issue, should it be passed by the district, would be issued in probably 3 different separate bond issues to mitigate and manage those type of cash flow. Those are things we'll keep an eye on. We're always on the outlook for the district to refinance the existing debt to the extent that we can save dollars from that standpoint. But the reality of the situation is the combination of your valuation growth and your issuance of debt. The problem you're always in a growing district is you have to issue debt in order to build facilities that obviously you're not even going to hold them for three years. And that valuation, you're expecting that valuation to catch up with the growth in students that you've seen over historical times and then growth you've seen in valuation.
And do you know by chance offhand how much interest we have paid on our current debt?
No, I could get that for you, but
If you would, that would be great.
I'd be happy to do that, yes.
It's worrisome on any of that.
I can tell you, Dr. Hoffman passes that numbers about how much interest we saved the district by refinancing bonds over time, as well. We'll have that information there as well.
And I think it showed on one of the slides what the cost was for that. Do you mind throwing that back up there?
No,
So if you
absolutely.
can see that.
10 cents, yeah.
I think it was our bond people that we go through, not that. I don't know, it was on the bottom of the slide.
Oh, it's dollars and cents.
Oh,
Yeah,
excuse me.
yeah, correct.
I understand what you're saying. A portion of the bond.
Yes.
Essentially, the cost of issuance associated with issuing $153 million of bonds.
Yes, yep.
My apologies.
No, that's fine. That's what I wanted to, okay, and that's roughly, what do you say, a percentage of that?
It is.
It's typically, the cost of the issuing your bonds is a percentage of the total amount of bonds you issue in any particular contracts.
Okay.
Yes.
Thanks.
Other questions or comments?
I have some prepared remarks. Is that better? I just want to begin by thanking the community, many of which are here tonight, who have spent hours in public forums, come to the board meetings, emailed us, and participated in the high school planning committee over the last 6 months.
I sincerely appreciate your passion and know that you too want what is best for this district. I also want to thank the school district administration for their efforts over the last year in gathering information necessary to address the needs of this district from a facility standpoint. All of this in the midst of opening 2 new schools, a feat in itself that we should be celebrating. I'm also grateful for the Building and Finance Committee's efforts in really digging into what is needed in terms of a new high school to support the district's growth. I value both Mark and Tim's perspectives, and this is undoubtedly a historic project. It is certainly a challenge of a growing district to ensure we have what we need when we need it and nothing more. Certainly no one has a crystal ball to predict exactly how much growth we're going to have in 3 to 4 years, but I am personally confident in the assumptions that we made in modeling the growth. The board asked the administration to dig deep and not just rely on historical data to project future growth. We do have good data points. Neighborhoods that have already been platted, information from the joint meeting of the city council and mayor and the board earlier this summer, the number of houses under construction, historically, how many school-age kids are in those houses. The sizes of builder lots, which we know are changing and are getting smaller, and we're having houses built closer together. What are the birth rates in this county? We even worked with a demographer to say, is our information accurate? In some ways, growth is a good problem to have. We have a great district, and this is motivating families to join us in our community. And I want to keep this perspective because I was at a continuing education training last week with school board members from across the state, and I can assure you that not all districts have this problem. I have been an active board member. I've attended nearly all of the high school planning committee meetings where I've heard many voices. People from the community and teachers, parents, architects, construction experts, and more. I attended all 3 public forums. I participated in the small group settings to listen to the community members on what they wanted. I've received emails and phone calls and engaged with parents as I too pick up my own kids from soccer and baseball and many more activities in this community. I understand this decision impacts the greater community and I don't make it lightly. I assure you that I too want what is best for kids in our district. I believe I have had ample time as a board member to evaluate my decision and to vote this evening, and for that I'm very grateful. I also acknowledge that when we're starting with a number of over 100 million, it's difficult to keep the number reasonable. I do appreciate that what many economists are saying, we're at the brink of a recession. Costs are at an all-time high, and there are supply chain issues from every angle. The timing on this is not ideal, but we can't ignore the growth either. As the Building and Finance Committee, and based upon our recommendation to the board, we wrestled for hours with how to be prudent, how to be responsible stewards of taxpayer dollars that are spent on these projects. I've heard from many community members communicating their desire to offer a variety of career and technical trades, and we've heard that this evening. That is included in the proposal, and I support that. I have also heard from many patrons that if we build a second high school, it should at least be comparable to the current one. I do understand that we want all students who have graduated from this district, for the most part, to have very similar opportunities and experiences. And I understand it isn't always perfect, but we do have that philosophy in this district. I personally cannot recommend a vote for a bond proposal that would exclude facilities or activities. I understand the need that a football field is used daily by the marching band. It's used by football, dance, and cheer, soccer, and so many other activities that I can't even begin to list. We've committed to other programs at other schools, including the tennis, which will be sharing facilities with the existing high school. I firmly believe that involvement in activities outside of school enhances and contributes to our experience as high schoolers. And we can't ignore the infrastructure costs. I appreciate Dr. Hawk, you outlining what that dollar was. We can't build a school without roads, and some of those are costs if we pass this bond are just going to happen to build a school. Throughout this process, there has been one data point in particular that has really resonated with me. I'm not saying this was the only data point, but the one that really made sense to me. The current enrollment of the 5th through 8th grade students exceeds the capacity at the high school when they reach high school years. More specifically, if we have zero growth in enrollment, not one more student in those grades, we will be overbuilding capacity. And I'm not just saying by a couple of students. We have all experienced that bulging at the seams. And from the patrons I've asked and those who have communicated with me, I do not believe the community supports exponentially increasing class sizes. Further, there's a concern with our general facilities. Think of the cafeteria and the gyms and safely exiting the buildings when we're over capacity.
As a committee and a board, we have discussed and how this community has responded during a prior economic downturn, and we've been fortunate here in Bennington. We really haven't had the dip that other communities have had nearby us. Again, there is great support for this community and many families want to be here. And all of this heavy discussion tonight, let us not forget how great of a community this is and how outstanding our district is. And thank you to the community members here tonight. Again, you've invested in the success of our district, and thank you for being involved.
Allison, thank you. Other comments?
One quick one. I don't want it to mimic the other high school. I want it to be a level entry in. Steps. If that's all that we
You've seen the lay of the land, Tim. You can bet the under on steps. Other comments?
Just briefly, a +1, thank you, Mr. Grusin, and to the board treasurer, I appreciate your prepared remarks. And it would not be wise of me to try to state anything that you just said better and more clearly, so I appreciate that, a +1 to those things. But specifically the piece around both the qualitative and quantitative data that very many individuals in the administration and as part of our community have brought to this board to support and enable our decision around this very big piece of this district's history and its future. So I really appreciate that qualitative data, including input, stories, experiences, reflections, lots of feelings, concern, even anger at moments. Those matter. Excitement about the possibilities. Those are all important data points, quantitative data points, fiscal data points, from our potential taxation to our growth rate to our survey data that many of our patrons participated in. So very grateful for both the qualitative and quantitative data points, which have been myriad before this board, to support the decision that we need to make tonight. So echoing our treasurer's good remarks and saying thank you to the very many patrons, administrators and educators who contributed to that, so that this board can have a portfolio of information to make the decision tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie. Other comments?
I would just agree, and I don't want to go on because you guys have both said and I also want to point out, thank you to the three of you who have put in so much work on that committee to do this, and the administration, and all those folks that showed up for those meetings, traveled up to Sioux Falls. I mean, it's incredible what this community did to come to this point, and I think we have a really great bond and plan in front of us, and it's exciting. It really is.
If you don't mind, can we try to address, I know Carol Cerny asked the question about why there's a different number from the softball, baseball fields from the start. Can we address that while we're here discussing this?
Absolutely. What we did is, we did at one point in time separate some additional costs like engineering fees and the likes, and we added that into the cost of construction. So there would be different costs that we pushed out in July and as we move forward. Also, part of the construction management at risk process allows for that contractor to continue to look at those pricings. And if there are efficiencies, if there are increases, that construction management at risk process helps in building the budget. So as we continue to work with that CMMR, those prices have changed up or down in addition to adding those additional costs on top of that.
And I think that may have been driven by my request, because we had separated out, like, if we added turf to the softball, what would that be? We didn't have concessions in there. We're not gonna have a softball field without restrooms, press box. It would be similar to the other high school. And so I said, it doesn't make sense to have a softball field with all these ancillary facilities separated out, because it was confusing about what the cost was. So I think that may have been driven by my
And
request.
that's why I wanted to make sure we got out so the public knew what we were discussing.
Yeah.
And why it was added up to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there are some things too, like on the track, for instance, where the committee talked about, there's just a variability. So the post-tension surface versus the asphalt surface, there's such a variability in pricing for asphalt that the thing that looks more expensive today may actually be the less expensive thing tomorrow. And because this is a long project, and there's that kind of variability in it, I think that's why we wanted to adopt this construction management process, so that we could kind of deal with the supply chain variability. The guaranteed maximum price is an important concept to me, right? When we go to the voters and say, this is what we're spending and this is what you're gonna get, that's the number. Number doesn't change next year or the year after or the year after that. That's the number. And there are still some choices that need to be made along the way. But I would also say that it's good that we have those choices to make so that we can bring a quality project in at the price we committed to bring it in. Other comments? Rock, paper, scissors. Maybe I'll wrap us up then. I certainly want to echo many comments made this evening. I do want folks to know, so this is a big decision for our community, and we have understood that. And I don't mean just we the board and we the administration. We the community have understood that it is a big decision for a long time. And 18 years ago, another smaller Bennington made a colossal decision, stepping out of a single building and building a high school. Nikki and I moved our family here 14 years ago, or no, 8, when did we move here? 14 years ago, right before our daughter started kindergarten. She went to Bennington Elementary her first year. It's just our second building. She was in the overcrowded high school, standing room only lunch. Our son opened the first middle school, and we've been through all of the growing pains, and I've seen this board and previous boards act responsibly and just in time, not too soon, maybe sometimes a little behind. We see what happens when a construction schedule gets delayed even 2 weeks, or when we open a middle school with a dirt floor in the gym for 6 months, right? So the need that this community have is present and it's compelling. That's why I support this bond issue at this time. I also want folks to understand that just like other board members, I have engaged in a long process of information gathering and listening. And it's certainly our responsibility as elected officials to listen. And those of you who have expressed concerns about taxes and location and traffic and safety, know that they're heard. We were called volunteers earlier this evening, and certainly we are. But we are elected officials, and I take the public trust that comes with being an elected official very, very seriously. I put it over my family. And I know other board members do too, because Tim is missing a softball game that his daughter is playing in her senior year so that he can make a decision about your daughter, your son, your tax bill. This is something that I know we have labored on, thought about, not a decision we take lightly. I'm excited. I think this is a tremendous opportunity for our community. There are things that are in this proposal that I might have wanted to defer on, and there are things that are not in this proposal that I wish we were acting on now. But the best decisions are the ones that the community can largely get behind. That's what we've searched for, and that's what I think we have. So if there are any other further comments, I'll take them. Otherwise,
Go Morgan.
go Morgan and all badgers. With that, I would call the roll.
Allison?
Yes, Dr. Hopkins, is that correct?
Yes.
We do need a motion. No, I did make a motion. Yes, we were in discussion. We did it all in the right order.
I want to make sure that this is done properly.
When I get long-winded, yes, we have a motion by Mark and seconded by Mallory. Jody, please call.
Allison?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Valerie?
Yes.
Kara?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes. Motion carries. In somewhat anticlimactic fashion, we have one more business item this evening, and that is the approval of final bills for the 2021-22 school year. Dr. Hawk?
Yes, there are two motions before the board. This is to close out the fiscal year. One is to pay the final bills, and there's many invoices. You see a list of some bigger items there. And two is the transfer of monies. The transfer of monies would go in this situation to the activity account. So one motion for general funds to the activity account is first.
I move to approve transfer of the general funds to the activity fund as presented.
I'll second.
Moved by Valerie, seconded by Kara. Any discussion? Jody, please call the roll.
Kara?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Allison?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Valerie?
Yes.
Motion carries.
I move to approve bills for payment as presented.
Second.
Moved by Valerie and seconded by Allison. Any discussion on this motion? Jody, please call the roll.
Kara?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Allison?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Valerie?
Yes.
Motion carries. Our next meeting will be our regular meeting to be held Monday, September 12th at 6 p.m.
And prior to that would be the budget hearing.
We will have it is budget season, so we will have a budget hearing in conjunction with that. With no other business before the board, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Tim. Seconded by Mark. All in favor of adjourning, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? This motion or this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.